But it's all goes here in this crazy world. Everybody's getting their spring on, I'm sure. I know I am. I'm pretty excited about some of the additions I'm doing to the garden. And that is what this is all about here today. So I'm going to stop rambling a little. I thought Mike was sitting there a second ago, but it's all good. Thank you guys for joining us for Soil Nerds, Cyclone Tea Brewers, irrigation, fertigation, nutrients, stock tanks for irrigation, backyard zones, and all the good stuff. So did you guys come prepared to talk about your irrigation setup or your buddy's irrigation setup?
Absolutely.
Whoop, whoop. That's what's up.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you what, so I will just jump in, and for those of you who don't know, I'm Mike Ballard, and here with Key to Life. Welcome. And I was talking to Kara this morning, and just remembering that tea and brewers is how I got into this industry.
Me too.
And then, it was interesting. I was with another company, and I kept running into this company called Key to Life, and they had these amazing products, and it was all about tea and brewers. And the first time I saw you guys, I think, was at Indo Expo, Tate, and you were passing out. You had a brewer there, walking, and you were passing out jugs of tea to everybody. And that was my introduction to the industry. So, whatever it is, that was 7-8 years ago. So now here we are today. So welcome to Soil Nerds. So Tate Dooley, take it away, CEO of Key to Life.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, man. And it's funny because I was just outside recording a little video on my tea brewers and stuff. And one of them that I'm using out there is probably 7 or 8 years old. It's pretty hilarious. But yeah, that was where the whole thing started. It was Triple Helix Brewing Systems back in the day in 2000, like maybe 10, 11, 12, that time frame, where basically we were just making crazy tea brewers. It was really how we started this whole thing. Why? Because we saw a lot of people using 55-gallon drums as reservoirs and just like having a still bottom tank and reservoir and seeing a lot of settling happen. And that's actually how I met Philip a long time ago as well, was selling the tea brewers and then giving out teas via tea days at this local hydroponics retail store that I managed that was called the Hydro Shack. So, kind of crazy how far we've come since, in the last decade, from being managers of hydro stores and, medical patients to tea brewers to nutrients to where we're at now. Really appreciate you guys joining us on this journey. And somebody that I really appreciate having on the journey is, well, everybody. I say that and then I look up at the screen and I'm like, oh, how do I go to one person now? But is also Kyle Barogi, who is here, product specialist here at KTL, who's been with us for 5 years, as well as Ian Smith, who has watched this whole thing be born and supported me as a friend and as a businessman for, almost as a friend, 15 years, and as a businessman, almost a decade now. So thank you guys very much for joining. Appreciate it. As well as Phil, because Phil was one of the customers that used to use my tea back in the day before Key to Life Nutrients even existed, and I was giving out our product in Ziploc bags with Sharpie marker on them. So Phil got to see and use the product in the beginning of the day, and now here we are, and he's helping spread the word. So any of you three, Kyle, Ian, and or Phil, feel free to chime in on your fun times with KTL.
Well, I think I purchased one of probably your first brewers, that you may have.
The 6-arm.
Yeah, the 6-arm. Lots of poses. I think they have it down now. You guys have it to what, 1 now, Tate? Got it from 6 to 1. A lot less to deal with, a lot less to clean. Obviously I started off with the old brewer and it worked just great. I loved it. Brewed a lot and it worked perfectly for my room. I had a 50-gallon and I was doing, 24 plants, and it just made it really easy to get through. And, the nutrients that Tate had to offer at the time, just amazing, So I love it. And that's what got me started. And that's why I'm here today,
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, and Phil back in the day was hitting 2 pounds of light on, on old school technology with hand watering. So
yeah.
Hey, so Tate, maybe just take us back to the beginning. What is tea, and why is it important? Why should people care about?
That question is super important, but what also is really important, I appreciate you, Mike, but I also appreciate Ian and Kyle, and I know that they probably had something to chime in and say on the journey in the last 5 to 10 years, so I want to do them some justice. Sorry, we'll get back to that in one moment, brother.
Hey guys, I'm Ian. I've just been part of the journey, helping out, even when we used to grow plants and such, and doing all the donkey work. They called me the donkey because I just I don't know, had to do all the dirty jobs, I guess. But everything from filling packages just to seeing where we've gone to. What I'm most excited about is just seeing how we've been able to accept other companies and other solutions on board than just dry soluble amendments. Yeah, Keto Life definitely has the most kick-ass independent amendments I've ever known to have or use. But I'm really excited for the opportunity to be working with other prestigious brands across the industry to provide solutions for our farmers and people. So this soil nerd session, I'm really excited about growing. So please feel free to invite people to our next one. We're going to do one every other Wednesday. And just before we get into it, I wanted everybody to know you can unmute yourself and ask any questions at any time. That's what it's supposed to be. It's an open forum to shoot down questions or problems, or just network with people that we might not have been able to without it. So please keep it an open forum. Please ask questions, type them in the chat if you don't want to interrupt, or just jump on in and say something anytime you need to want to answer. That's what we're here for.
Thank you for saying that, Ian. Appreciate
show
it.
you cool things and ways we like to do things. And I think Tate wanted to show you how he just set up his garden for the spring because it's really cool. But otherwise, I know we've got a lot of different types of farmers on the phone as well. So just please bring questions, bring your soil reports, any past problems you went through, and we're going to try to help you find solutions to them. So that's what we're here today. So, what up?
Thanks, brother.
So for those of you who don't know, I'm Kyle Brogy from Keto Life. Started my Keto Life journey, like Tate was saying, a little over 5 years ago, about 5.5 years ago at this point. I myself also, when I was exposed to Keto Life, was working in a grow store. And
as a manager, right?
As the purchasing manager and head manager of the grow store, yep. I have a background in microbiology. I have a collegiate degree in microbiology and sustainable soil sciences. And when I came across the Keto Life products, it really just, it was the missing link that I had been waiting for, the entire time that I had been exposed to the industry. Tate came into the office or into my shop, and we nerded out for a couple hours. And then, about a week later, I quit my job and started to work for the company because I was just that enthusiastic about, in that 1 week between me introducing the products and bringing them up through the industry. I think I reordered and re-upped 4 or 5 times in a week because I just the people that I worked with trusted me and found really good immediate results from the products, implementing a higher strength microbial into implementing cleaner products. And ever since then, I've, since I've joined the company, I've been able to absorb a lot of Tate's knowledge, as well as utilize a lot of my own. So it's been a nice mesh and blend together of a group of people educating each other, bringing each other up to speed, taking their own life experiences and personal experiences and scientific backgrounds and education and research that they've done and brought to the table, and created this culmination of really, really good knowledge. That's where we're at today. We're a group of deadly assassins who can pretty much answer any question about anything as it deals with growing. So again, that's what we're here for. We're here to help you guys. We're here to educate you guys. We're here to teach you a few things. Yes, we've got subjects we like to talk about. But like Ian was saying, if you've got any questions about anything, implementation, utilization, just something that you had heard in the industry that doesn't add up, questions that you might have, feel free to chime in at any time. That's what we're here for.
Heck yeah, brother. Much love, homie. Appreciate it, man. And, since we're at it and you brought up experts and you brought up, how we're all here to learn together and to bring all of our strengths to the table, another expert that I wanted to introduce would be Kara. And Kara is our entomologist, bug girl. So she's making it happen. Kara, take it away.
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Kara. I've been a part of the bug industry for about 5 years now. Just, like everyone else, just you find this like passion with something, this little niche, and the more you start applying that to the grow space, the better you get. So we're all here to bring our heads together to help everybody out to have a successful crop. So if you have any questions at all, please let us know. Please let me know. If you need my contact info, let me know. Happy to give you my info. I started my journey with Key to Life back in December, and been thrilled to be a part of the team ever since. Always something to learn here. So it's cool to be a part of a company who's continuously, willingly wanting to grow and help employees and people that we work with as well. So all good stuff. I appreciate you guys having me, for sure.
Thanks very much, homie. Appreciate it. It was good having you out here recently.
Love it. Next time, when's next time?
So we're doing that again in August. And it looks like I'm about to go road warrior status because the world's open again. And I used to be hardcore road warrior for a few years, and then the world got all weird, and it's about to happen again. So to be continued on that.
Yes.
In a city near you soon.
Get us back on planes.
Yeah, for real. And then also somebody else that's dear to sustainability that I wanted to highlight, and then wanted to open it up after that to anybody just their journey with organics and sustainability and landscaping and any of those things, to Taylor, because Taylor's been heavily involved in, sustainable landscaping and city municipality things. Take it away, Taylor.
Well, thank you for the introduction. I appreciate that. So I guess myself, I've been in the horticulture industry for about, 15 years and so forth, mostly in the landscape marketplace and the golf course industry. I used to build golf courses in Lake Tahoe and manage them in Lake Tahoe and so forth, and had a sustainable landscape company in San Francisco for about 10 years before all this compost tea and organics was a new niche in the marketplace. So I was way ahead of the curve in all this, making compost tea and using biological controls and nematodes and what Kara's offering and what Key to Life offers as well. So I'm down here in LA area, so forth. So I deal with a lot of municipalities and cities like City of Irvine, probably like Malibu and so forth, and other landscape companies that were taking their green waste and recycling it with another company called Green Ethology. that uses works with Dr. Elaine Ingham with the Soul Food Web and so forth. So it's exciting, and I'm back in LA again. I was busy for a while. So hello, everybody, and thank you for being here. Thank you.
Oh yeah, that's what's up. Anybody else want to add on? Thank you very much, Taylor. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. We are all in this boat together, right? And this boat that we are in is adding beneficial microbes back to soil anywhere so that more carbon can be sequestered from the atmosphere so the environment can start correcting itself. Because it's very clear that the way that we've been doing things is not the correct way. Killing soil biology and doing mass tillings and mass sprayings and mass herbicides and killing, local biology and local plants and native species of plants, just, plant our hemp plants or our whatever type of plant, isn't that cool to me. So I'm big into sustainable ag, just like all of you guys are. We're all in the same boat together. I really appreciate you guys being environmental stewards and, taking that and those actions into everything that we do every day. Thank you guys. Anybody else want to chime in on their journey as to sustainability and the mission, the why?
We're just why you're here today.
Or just tell us what type of weed you're smoking on. Anybody. It's all good. We'll get you guys later. So with that being said, do you guys want me to go into some screen share? What are you thinking, Mike? Should I go into some screen share?
So again, I think it's good to start at the beginning. Make sure everyone understands what it means, what microbial tea actually is, and why it's beneficial, not just for the planet, but for the plant itself. Why do plants need microbes, and why is microbial tea the way to supercharge your growth?
For sure. That's one of the funnest questions ever, because it really can expand people's mind with the sheer numbers that are involved with compost tea. So we're all familiar with compost a little bit, Unfortunately, I'd have to say, even if we are familiar with compost, most of the time we're not familiar with good compost. Because most of the time the compost that we're getting from the store is first off made through heat degradation. They actually use steam pipes in large mulch piles or municipal waste piles to steam and kill off and cause breakdown or degradation of organic material via heat. So it's actually sterilized, basically, compost. A lot of mulch, a lot of municipal grade compost is this way. Why? Because they don't understand soil biology. They don't understand composting. They don't understand proper compost cycling and rotations and all these things. So we could spend days on that subject alone, obviously. But to keep it moving, when we look at compost, good compost, it's loaded with microbes, fungi, humic acids, fulvic acids, amino acids, micronutrients, nutrients, elements, rock dust, minerals, volcanic ash, blah, 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 blah. Basically, and all different types of soil, depending on where you live, have different soil types. Even right here versus 100 feet that way can be a different soil type. So it's beautiful how soil and biology really are the same thing as a fine high-grade compost. A high-grade compost is all the best things that you're looking for out of the best soil in a concentrated manner. So that's compost. Compost tea is the same thing once again. But the interesting thing is every gallon of compost tea is equivalent to 1,000 pounds plus of compost, depending on what type of compost. If you're using a municipal grade, dead, sterilized, made via, heat compost, it could be 10,000 pounds of compost for 1 gallon of high active microbial content compost tea. And so the traditional thing was AACT, actively aerated compost teas. Well, actively aerated compost teas were discovered when somebody was like, you know what? I don't have enough of this compost to be able to treat all of my plants with raw compost. Hey, I'm going to take some of it and I'm going to put it in this mesh tea bag and I'm going to hang it in my reservoir and it's going to get pumped out onto my plants. And the first ones were like manure. The first ones were just regular compost. You know, we're talking no air stones, no agitation, just like a tea bag in water that got dispersed and fed out to plants. So, you know, that was probably, you know, the Mayans probably did stuff like that. So we're talking, this is really old, ancient technology. And they used their best, most fertile, dark, rich soils and composts in their water to distribute to their plants. So that's AACT. Where did Key to Life come into play with the crazy triple helix brewers and these high grade, super high purity, high solubility elemental teas? Is AAET, actively aerated elemental tea. And that term was coined in my garage, you know, 12 years ago after smoking a lot of weed and, you know, hanging out and doing a bunch of irrigation. And I had 20 different compost tea brewer designs in my driveway. And, you know, I'll go ahead and say it here on the call. Mike loves this story. Should I say it, Mike?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I had 20 different compost tea brewers, designs and hoses and configurations and plumbing sizes and all sorts of shit in my driveway. I was testing them all out, and I was a medical marijuana caregiver up in Breckenridge, Colorado, where I shattered the crap out of my arm, and I had to get 2 plates and 16 screws put into my arm, and I had a piece of my hip taken out, and I had a bone graft taken out of my hip and put into my arm to fill in this huge chunk of bone that was missing. And they tried to get me on Percocet and Oxycontin and all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm not into all that stuff. I'm not into it. And I was 17 years old, and I got my first medical marijuana card. And so I started growing cannabis, grew with bottled stuff at the store, blah, blah, blah. And several years later, continuing to live the caregiver lifestyle of here in early Colorado for myself, growing myself really good medicine and stuff like that, I started to mess around with the tea brewers and the actively aerated elemental teas. And I got raided by the feds and the state up in Breckenridge, Colorado. And they came in and they saw my tea brewers and they saw these bags of white powders and brown powders and black powders. And they were like, what are you doing? Are you making drugs? And I was like, no, man, I'm brewing compost tea, microbes, fungi, male and female energy. Hell yeah, you know, microbial proliferation cycles and feeding habits and stuff. And they were like, okay. And they handed me back my... Phil, do you remember that?
I think I do, yeah.
Yay.
That was the Wild West.
And then I got my search warrant handed back to me with a gigantic X across it, and it said nothing. And they were like, Mr. Dooley, you should keep growing, and you should really try and do something about this really awesome fertilizer that you're trying to make for people, because your plants are fucking banging. I was hitting like 4 pounds of light, 4.5 pounds per 4x4 in 2009, like killing it, crushing it super hard. And yeah, basically that was all I did back then. The only thing I did, the only place that you saw me was in my grow or on the mountain snowboarding. That was the only 2 places that you basically saw me. And so there's the story for you guys on how the tea brewers started and my nudge to start Key to Life and Triple Helix Brewing was actually from the feds when they raided me. Pretty hilarious.
Let's talk about those early designs and what was made elemental tea different, and the Bernoulli effect, the upside down conical shape.
Yeah. So as Phil mentioned, the old brewers had 3 tubes that spun clockwise and 3 tubes that spun counterclockwise. And basically, sorry, I just got a text here. It distracted me. 3 tubes that spin clockwise, 3 tubes that spin counterclockwise, and counterclockwise is male or female energy, and clockwise is male energy. And the male and female energy, just like the galaxies. You remember this pitch? Man, I haven't pulled this one out in like 5 years. Like the galaxies and like the stars and like the universes out there and how they all spin in different directions. Certain star systems and universes spin different directions. The reason being they all have a different energy pattern to them. So I believe that energy pattern can potentially manipulate microbial enzymatic frequencies. I don't really know, is it something that can be proved? Can it be something that can be like tracked and traced? Probably not. So that was why I ended up taking the brewer from 6 hoses and 6 valves, and I decreased it by over 120 parts and pieces, and the cost went down like 90% for the brewer when I did that, because all the cost was in parts and pieces basically. And yeah, so they went from 6 tubes to 3 tubes to 1 tube, and from 6 valves, 7 valves to 4 valves to 1 valve. So yeah, pretty interesting. A lot of people would break them. That was the main reason we stopped. How about you guys? What type of tea brewers do you guys use, or have you seen being used?
I just wanted to chime in real quick. Mike had brought up, the sort of the Bernoulli effect and for the cone bottom. There's a couple reasons for it. First things first is since the tea brewers that Tate's invented are all based off of diaphragm air pumps instead of interning propeller mechanisms, that in and of itself is a particular way to increase the oxygenation or the dissolved oxygen content of the actual brew that itself. This is really important when you're trying to brew aerobic bacteria, which is oxygen-loving bacteria, and in depressing the populations of anaerobic bacteria, which can, in certain situations, be harmful and when built up can cause anaerobic plumage in your soil systems, which can cause root degradation, microbiological imbalance, and pH imbalance. So using that diaphragm air pump and using air to move the stuff through the tea brewer itself is a really important distinction about what makes Key to Life in the Vortex brewing system
Cyclone.
as it is.
Cyclone.
Correct.
That other guy.
Yeah.
The V word.
Yeah. the poser. But yeah, so the Cyclone brewing technology and in that as well as the waterfall effect of it dropping down as it drops the water back on top of the solution to create that cyclonic brewing effect. As it waterfalls down and cascades through the air, that's another point of oxygenation. So that gives us another chance to get more dissolved oxygen into the system, maximize the oxygen content, and maximize aerobic populations. And then again, for the cone bottom, the main purpose there, like Tate was saying, is that instead of a flat bottom, where on the edges of that flat bottom, you get these little pockets in the corners and things where things,
or just on the whole thing,
or just the whole thing, right? If it's not properly agitated and mixed up and whatnot, you get a lot of sedimentation at the bottom, and those little pockets of sediment at the bottom also are places to harbor anaerobic bacterial populations, which we're not trying to do. So having a cone bottom, it means that there's no point at which the entire solution that it is sitting stagnant. It is always being agitated. The entire solution, 100% of the time, is always being agitated. So that's those two things right there are what really make the Cyclone brewing technology different than most homemade brewers. Your 5-gallon bucket with an air stone in it, whatever system, which can be effective, better than doing nothing. But it's what makes. I mean, and it can take a microbial population from being pluming up 5 times, 10 times, 24 times overnight to brewing up multiple thousands of times of colony forming units in a 12 to 24 hour period. So that's again, very important distinction on what makes the type of brewers that we're talking about different than most things that you see in the industry.
And Mike had asked, sorry, Mike, real quick. And Mike, you had asked about the different designs and all the different things and how the brewer got the way that it was. Well, I bought a $1,500 Hanna dissolved oxygen meter, which you and I were on a call about earlier today. Yeah. And I literally just sat there and messed around with all the plumbing configurations till I had the highest dissolved oxygen content level possible, all the different spots that I could inject the air. And what I found out is if you could inject the air at the lowest point possible in the entire system, causing the largest bubble and then the largest cascade effect, that you'd increase your solubility or your dissolved oxygen level drastically. But also, along with the dissolved oxygen, we also need to look at another quality of water, and that is oxygen reduction potential. And maybe we should use that for a future segment. I'll just stop that tangent there. Mike, maybe we should make a soil nerd, a water nerds session, because man, we could spend a hell of a lot of time in of itself just talking about water, all the different factors of water, how pumps interact with water, how air pumps and water pumps interact with water, all the different well versus city stuff. And while I put the cork in that, Kara had asked what the maintenance was on the brewers. And actually in this video I'm about to play, one of these brewers literally was 7 years old, and I had never replaced the plumbing. It had never cracked. It was one of the earliest one-arm brewers I ever built. And I just kept it clean. I made sure when I was moving it around and stuff, I wasn't an idiot and bumped it into stuff, because usually that's how they get broken. It's usually during transport. It's usually during install, during, disassembly, stuff like that. Once they're up and they're running, they're usually pretty good, especially with the one-arm brewers. They come with these really cool cam lock fittings and stuff now. So it's like if you want to take the arm off and clean it, it's like chink, pull the arm off, use a pipe clean it out. And other than that, your real only maintenance with them is keeping them clean. And you can do that a couple different ways. Number 1, elbow grease. Number 2, chemicals and products and stuff like that. I wanted to highlight there are some biosafe products that I would use. And then there's also this awesome company called Garden Clean. There's some products that I would use from Garden Clean as well. But my favorite and best things to do with new plumbing and to help with PVC maintenance and less sludge and slime and organic matter over time is, before you run anything through it, do a really heavy enzyme solution. And what that does is it impregnates all the little cracks and valleys and crevices of the PVC and of the pipe plumbings and of the fittings and in the drippers and the blah, 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 with these beneficial enzymes. So the very first thing that gets down into the deepest cracks of those areas is these beneficial enzymes, so that the organic matter and bioslime is coming down on top of them versus that stuff being below them and them trying to have to eat down on top of it. So that's actually what I did this morning, was an enzyme soak on my tanks and my reservoirs and my irrigation. Kara, did that answer your maintenance question? Perfect. Anybody else, anything they want to add in real quick on any of that? I'm trying to keep it open, but I keep tangenting. Sorry.
So I'll jump in again. So, going back to my original introduction to tea, the first time I saw tea was, like you talked about, a cheesecloth bag with worm castings and alfalfa meal and fish meal dropped into a 50-gallon tank with an aerator on the bottom, right? And then after 24 hours, all the population explosion would happen, and the water would start to bubble with all the microbes that were being born, right? And then the whole idea was that we would then pour that onto our plants. So my understanding with the cyclone design